Hey folks, Graham here, Excel 10-minute leaders live. This time 10 minutes tips on how to build your personal brand. And really this is from my experience as a host working with people on this YouTube channel, 10-minute leaders live, and sharing some feedback on really what works and what doesn't work when it comes to personal brand building. So I've got 3 tips that I'd like to share with you today. If there's anything that you would like to know more about, then just put it in the comments below. If you enjoy these tips, then please, you know what to do. Thumbs up. So all of this experience is from Excel 10-minute leaders live, plus, well, I've done about 1,000 podcasts now. So I sat on both sides of the microphone, both as a host and as a guest. I've heard people pitch. I've heard brilliant stories. I've heard terrible podcast interviews. I've done them all. So I'd like to share with you in the next 9 minutes 3 tips on how you can build your personal brand and do it in a better way. It doesn't have to be hard work, folks. And believe it or not, that everybody's capable of telling good stories. So the first one is writing more. Now, it seems strange that in a world where we're talking about personal brand building on video such as this, or on, one of these things, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is that I'm talking about writing. Well, the reason is because I'm a great believer that writing teaches you more than it teaches the audience. And really the reason you should write is to clarify your own thought architecture. What am I talking about? Now, if you have to write a book, as I'm picking up here, Seth Godin's This Is Marketing, you have limited real estate. You have 252 pages to get all your ideas here. And the reason why that's important is because in your head, as in my head, there are a lot of ideas, a lot of things floating around. These are experiences, these are thoughts, these are events in your life. And they're all kind of semi-connected. And what you need to do as a writer is bring these all together, crystallize your thoughts and get it into a book. Now, you don't have to publish a physical book like this, but you can publish an ebook. And I tell you the reason why you should think about writing more and publishing an ebook, even 10 pages, is because when you are an author, it suddenly elevates your status in the mind of the recipient host. So if you are going on to a podcast, if you are going on to a show like this, like Excel 10-minute leaders live, if you are talking to a journalist, one of the first things that that host looks for in your profile is, have they written a book? Because if you haven't written a book, it significantly increases the risk of taking you on the show, because it means you haven't spent the time clarifying your thought architecture. Author, authority, audience. There is a similarity in those words, which comes from, and I've talked about this before in my writings, the Greek etymological root of the word, which is au, ancient Greek, which means to feel, to perceive. When you are an author, you're an authority, you have an audience. Write more, practice, and it doesn't matter if you don't ever publish a physical book, an ebook will do. Which brings us to the second point when it comes to brand building. This is an evolving process. What I mean by that is I believe in agile. I'm a startup founder, which means that the ultimate form of your solution, your product, your company is not what you start with. You don't start building a rocket to Mars that can go to Mars. You start with building a booster rocket that can launch into the atmosphere. And it is the same with your personal brand and your storytelling. What am I talking about? I mean that to get good at personal brandings, you need to get good at storytelling. I'll talk about that in a minute. To get good at storytelling, you need to practice. And to practice, you need to face the moment of truth. What is the moment of truth, Graham. And this is really important. Now, I'm sitting on my ass right now in this chair, and when I get up and walk around, I'm using my leg muscles, as we all do, right? However, I'm walking, and I have been walking for nearly 50 years. I'm nearly 50 now, right? And as you have, all your life, you've been walking, crawling, whatever it is. But with all of that exercise, 50 years, why aren't my leg muscles gigantic? Well, the reason is because they don't face the moment of truth. And it is the same with your personal branding. And it is the same from my experience. I learned this when I lived in Japan as an English teacher in the late 90s. And I met Japanese students who had spent 10 years studying English at school, but couldn't speak a word of English. The reason is because every single word of English came from studying a book. Not once had that student stepped out, walked into a store, walked into a cafe, spoke to a stranger, and had to communicate in English and faced the moment of truth. It's the same reason why your leg muscles aren't gigantic, because day in, day out, they operate in the comfort zone. And as anybody in fitness, and if you look at some of my XL 10-minute leaders live guests, some of them are fitness people. They will tell you the only way to develop a muscle is to push it past the moment of truth into the failure zone. And it's the same, with your personal brand. You only get good when you face the moment of truth, when you face failure, when you face rejection, when you get on stage. So my advice to you, if you want to build your personal brand, is publish more. Publish means that moment when your finger is hovering above the publish button and you're thinking, oh, I don't know if I should publish this. Maybe I've given away too much of myself personally. I feel a little bit scared about publishing this. I feel I'm revealing too much about my personal life or my personal thoughts or my feelings when I hit publish. If you're feeling that, it means you're facing the moment of truth, and it means absolutely this is the right thing to do. So practice more, put yourself out there, and be more vulnerable. And the last part is tell more stories. Coming back to old Seth, our friend here, this is marketing. He basically says that all marketing is telling stories. And I'm not, and also speaking properly. Telling stories means being able to convey information and giving it context in a way that is meaningful to your audience. And it's not about fabrication or spinning the truth. Some years ago, I was running a workshop for startup founders on storytelling. And one of the startup founders pulled me aside after the first presentation. Let's call him Alvin. And Alvin said to me, Graham, I don't want to tell the stories. I want to tell the truth. He was pretty pissed off. He was protesting. And I turned around to Alvin and I said to him, Alvin, if you don't tell a story, I won't know what your truth is. Think about that. That actually what stories do is take information and they package it so that we can interpret it and make sense of it. It is not spinning it or taking it out of its factual origin. Because if you give people fact, if you give people bullet points, they'll forget it. Case in point, look at flattening the curve. Remember this? Flattening the curve. How powerful that was at getting us to get on board with the idea of public health care and squashing the coronavirus. Flattening the curve was a fantastic example of data storytelling. It wasn't about fabricating the truth. It was about using a story to convey information to an effect to create change. And that is what storytelling is. And that is ultimately what personal branding is all about. Creating change, creating impact, and having influence. So today, my 3 tips for you were: write more, practice more, tell more stories.